We are live on air. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks, Les. You had a good weekend?
Not too bad yet. Been editing some more videos, but you've got to take advantage of the fine weather and get outside these days.
Yeah, brilliant, isn't it? No complaints.
Because here in the UK, anybody who's not in the UK, it can just change drastically, from one day to the next.
Yeah, well, I plan on getting into forests in North Yorkshire next week for at least a day. But I've got to just look at weather. I think it's going to close in after Tuesday, but we shall see. But looking at this, plenty in chat here, Les, which is great. Thanks for the support, guys.
Before you start off, we're just going to thank anybody who's come to the stream for the first time. Hope you're going to like and subscribe to the channel and click all and get all the notifications. That'd be great if you could do that. And I'll let you fire away with the chat, Paul.
Yeah, well, we've only got an hour, haven't we? So we'll just sort of fire through a few names here in chat. DM Moon, Stargazer, Steph. I think Lynn is in because I saw him earlier. I can't see. Lindsay Sankey, Sober Carper, Mike Disabled Welshman. Let's have a look. Rivington Pipe Beast, Mag Sue. These names just fly up. LP's Steph, Galba, Pete Masters. Hey up, Pete. Good to see you. Mark Jones. That's our electronics guy, Pete Masters, people, which is brilliant. He's the guy. When we said we picked 1.6 gigahertz up at the Rudston Monolith, and I said, this guy got the information, is in chat. And not that it might mean nothing to some people, but it might mean a lot to others. Warren Hardcastle, Lisa Odd, and KH Worker, Gary Stewart Wicks, and Billy G. And I'm going to have to stop in a minute. Dave Bancroft, and anybody I've missed, apologies, because we've got an hour, so we'll just fire into a few bits tonight. And questions, please, in capitals. I know Alison's doing moderating for us. She's already said that, but it's all about you guys tonight. Just fire some questions. We've got a little bit of footage to show, but right, what's this? Go on then, Les.
I think it came on by mistake.
No worries.
Yeah, I think Alison brought that on. And we've got a video to start off with. I think it was Alison that. Yeah, we've got a video to start off with, Paul, and what we pre-recording we did earlier on today. And it was quite interesting because we've got a guy called Tim who's presenting some evidence of what he thinks he saw. So there's some stills and some video if you want to just tell us where he's from.
Well, he were actually doing a bit of research. These guys are into the spirits and the ghost hunting. I don't know them. I've not met them before or spoke to them before, but Tim were kind enough to send me a bit of footage as they're walking around, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Is it Delapre Abbey, Northampton? How do we pronounce that one, Les?
Delapre, was it?
Delapre Abbey, Northampton. And so it's a daylight footage, and he admits that the camera's not very good quality. I think it's 720p. He's just filming a grassy area and the trees. And when he looks afterwards, because he doesn't see it before, he sees something in the footage. So if we just play this, we're not making any claims as to what it is.
So it's a 7-minute video, Paul. So we'll come back after it's played out. And
your thoughts, please, on it. If you think it's nothing,
thoughts,
that's good enough for us. But obviously, be respectful because the guy's been kind enough to send it us. Okay, Les. Tim, how are you doing?
Hi, Paul. Good to see you, mate. Good to see you.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that you sent me that footage earlier in the week. And rather than me try and explain it to our listeners and viewers on live stream, I thought get in contact with you and let you kind of walk us through it. But before we actually show the footage, what are you about? How did you become involved in the subject of unexplained phenomena, or are you at all? I don't know.
Yeah, I am very much so. I mean, it was Arthur C. Clarke for me back in the day, you know, and the magazine that was out at the time, and then I saw the Patty footage. And wow, that was it. I was hooked, mate. Hooked. So I'm interested in it all of it, to be honest. I've seen various things, but UFOs and cats and things. But this was quite intriguing, I think. I mean, it's not the piece of footage is very blurry and it's inconclusive, and I don't know what it is. I'm not saying it's a cryptid, but I'm going to have to invest in a better camera for sure.
Well, what made you feel like you thought, well, I'll send this to Paul, let him have a look at it? There must have been something different there.
Yeah.
And when we aren't going into detail, because you can talk us through it in a moment, but what made you think that we've got something here?
This area is renowned. People have seen things there before. There's a couple of YouTube videos. I won't mention the chap's name, but they've had eye shine and things like that. There is a corridor running towards it with the river, and I think these things are using corridors. So I was pretty convinced it's something. It wasn't a deer. We went back and took some measurements, and it's not a deer. It was too big. Estimate between 6 and 7 foot tall.
Really? And you've got some photographs as well.
Yeah, there's some photos.
Okay,
yeah, photos.
If we get the footage up, then you could perhaps talk us through this, because you're only a few seconds. So this is the footage. Before we start, what camera are we using here? It's just
a cheapy camcorder, a Philips camcorder, which has got night vision on it. But I think this was shot at 720. It is very blurry. I say I wasn't expecting to see anything, to be honest. I was walking around to meet the rest of my team because we was investigating with paranormal investigators. Being such a active place, there's a pet cemetery just to the other side.
Okay.
Delapre Abbey. So I was just walking around. I didn't see it at the time, like I said. And as you see, I'm walking around here, just handheld.
Well, let's play footage, and you just talk over the footage, and I'll keep silent and run us through it. Okay.
So I'm walking around the lawn area, and over to the right-hand side, you can just make it out. You probably have to look in the photo, but it's a big brown blob, and it tends to melt away into the distance. It's not that clear until you actually blow it up, but there's definitely something there. We're coming around to where it was now, and you can see there's no tree stumps or no tree. Viewers would have to probably zoom in a little bit on their screen to see it. That tree's not in view where the object was. Coming around again.
So we're playing it again.
Yeah, you can just see it there, and it melts away.
It's about 1 o'clock, and it's disappeared.
Yeah, that was it. I'll say, I think you'd have to zoom. My eyes are not very good.
Well, we may be able to pick out if we put the stills on.
Put the stills.
So okay, then.
There's a stream just down there, the other side of that bush.
We'll do it one more time then. And
so you can see it there. About 1 o'clock, like you say.
Yeah, that's correct.
There was no noise. I say I didn't see it at all when I was filming it. It was when I got home and looked at it. We went back the next day, and I took a lot of measurements.
Right, that's where I was going to go with that next. So, why does this rule a deer out, Tim?
Well, there's no red deer. Our biggest deer in the area, so it would have to be a roe deer if it was a deer, but they only stand about 4 foot, 3 or 4 foot at the shoulder. This thing was nearly 7 foot tall. I say, well, we went back the next day because I was so excited, looking for evidence, and took some measurements. Got my son-in-law to stand there. Now he's 6 foot tall, and this thing. Because we compared the photos, this thing was much bigger.
So you got a frame where that was?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't send you that clip, but I did send you a before and, when we took the footage, and another photograph showing you where this thing stood. There's no tree stumps. There's nothing brown there. And you can see it's definitely not a person.
No, it's fascinating, Tim. And, like with everything.
But inconclusive.
Go on.
Sorry, inconclusive. I'm not saying it's a woodwose or Bigfoot or wild man, whatever you want to call it. But I believe there was something there. What it was, I don't know.
Well, I think all we can say is thank you very much for sharing it. I think Les is probably going to... So, Tim, shall we get the photographs up and you can talk us through these?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Because I zoomed in a little bit on the footage, so it might show it a little bit more.
That gives us, me and our viewers, a little bit more of a perspective. There is something there. Go on, Tim, tell us.
There is something there. And that timestamp is accurate. So this was around about 8 o'clock at night, I think, sort of twilight. But yeah, you can clearly see there's, to me, it looks like it's haunched over at the top.
Yeah.
We mentioned a deer, but there's not, a deer wouldn't be that tall. Even if it was standing on its hind legs, like chewing on a tree or something, there's no trees there for it to do that. So I ruled that out straight away. You know?
And that's the position that you placed your son-in-law the following day.
Yeah, we went back the following day. Not only, so you can see there that's more or less the same angle. Might need to zoom in a little bit on it, but that you can see there is nothing there at all. So we went back, took some measurements. No footprints because it's an ornamental garden, so it's all pristine and cut grass and such.
Right.
We looked for fur. We couldn't find any fur. And as I say, we took some measurements, and I reckon it was between 6 and 7 feet tall.
Well, Tim, it's absolutely brilliant that you managed to capture something, even if it was unknowingly. And it's one of them we're never going to know, are we? Right. But you've probably you've revealed a location that's worth you guys spending a bit of time in. Maybe set trail cams up.
Definitely, that is next on the agenda. We're going to put some Velcro around some of the trees there. From where it was, there's a corridor. It runs onto the River Nen, and there is a corridor that goes right out to sea. Well, we're in Northampton, right inland, but there's a huge corridor of countryside, quiet countryside. And like I said, these things have been not actually seen like that, but eye shine has been seen regularly down there by other investigators.
Well, Tim, all I can say is from myself and Les, we really sort of value people coming forward and sharing things like this with us. I mean, we've not got the smoking gun of ufology, of cryptozoology, or any of that, have we? Let's face it, you haven't, I haven't.
No.
But
no.
You're out there in the field, boots on ground, you and your team, looking for something. So full credit to you. Thank you. Yeah,
you're welcome. We called Moonlight Paranormal, just a small group, and we're just out enjoying ourselves, investigating these things. So we'll keep our eye on that place, and if there's anything else comes up, I shall be back in touch.
Excellent. You take care, Tim. Thank you very much, mate. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
There you go.
Yeah, that was really, really interesting. And Tim's a really interesting guy. Obviously, we talked longer before we did the recording. So, yeah.
It's what it's about, Les, isn't it? That, people out there, there's not, I'm not the only person doing this, and people in chat are just as invested in it. I would think most of them looking for their own sort of pieces to these puzzles, but it's clearly got something. We don't know what it is, and I'll push Tim actually to see whether he can send us that picture of the son-in-law in that position, because that would be good. I mean, and I don't think it will for any other reason. I need to stress that when Tim sent us the footage, or sent me the footage the other day, I only contacted him about 3 or 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason we haven't got that one, I would have thought, because I'd already got the footage and the pictures, but I thought there's nobody better to talk about this than me. Otherwise, it just looks like I'm discussing some vague anomaly and I haven't got the details of it. He's got more details than me. So I don't know what you guys thought. You might have thought you saw nothing. You might have seen more than me. So there you go.
Yeah, and if you got any comments to make on that, please put it in the chat, and we can probably get some questions from you. I have some questions, Paul, if you want any.
I do, and I've seen a few questions that aren't in capitals as well, but not to worry. Okay. I mean, it's just one of them things. But fire them at us. Let's see what we've got.
Brilliant. Martin Abbas is asking, Paul, when you do the skull work, are you worried about possession or harm? I only ask as I was watching The Exorcist.
I'm guided by my good friend Mick. And I'll not say his surname. He's been a friend of ours for years. and he's been involved in quite a lot of these circles where they've been trying to make contact. I wouldn't just say with spirit, with something. And this guy, it was the last person to spend any time with Robin Foy, who's the founder of the Skull Experiment, and he now lives in Scarborough. And I'm just giving a background, Martin, here, I understand, because I'm guided by this guy. We set off. He says a few things and offers protection. I'm not saying that's going to work, and it's interesting. It's fascinating. I've never been involved in anything like this. We're doing it in a basement, and we're only doing it once a week. And you know, we've been doing it now. This will be our fourth week, this coming Friday. So I suppose, yeah, there is something to worry about, Martin, but we just got to be as sensible and as level-headed as we can be, I would have thought.
And are you at liberty to tell us of any early results you may have had, Paul?
Yeah, I don't think they'd mind. I've recorded a summing up after every session, and we're doing about an hour and a quarter. I've put a voice recorder on during every session, and we're trying various things, including transfiguration. There was 5 people there last week, including myself, and I was the subject of the transfiguration. And I'm not going to be it next week. It's not something, I've got to be this. It was me. And what I found fascinating was, and unbelievably, my wife Mary's, I didn't think she'd be interested. And I said, why don't you come along and have a look at this? And suddenly one of the party said, I can't believe it. His eyes have gone. And Mary went white. And then this other lady said his eyes have gone white. And then Mick said his eyes have gone white. My eyes were closed. Completely closed. Yet there's 4 people saying that my eyes have opened and they're white, which is weird. To say that now, is it catching on? Is it some kind of not hysteria, but is it suggestion that's making people think this? I cannot say, but I found it. I did find it interesting. I'm sat there in silence, listening to these people speaking, and my eyes, no color to the eye or anything, just white. And Mary said the same. The other guy I spoke to, it's a strange one.
And you might have mentioned it, Paul, but how well lit is a room? Is it a dimly lit room?
It's a dimly lit red light that's on your face.
Oh, red
light.
Like
my face now after being in the sun.
Yeah, well, that kind of paints a picture as to what environment you're in there. Yeah. Okay. I've got a good question here from Steve071, and the emphasis is if you got permission, if you actually got permission, would you go down the disused military bunker on Bempton Cliffs to investigate?
I don't know what there'd be to investigate, Steve, to be honest with you. It's a great question. I don't think I'd get permission. When I wrote first book, I contacted them and I did get permission. And I went on. The bunker was sealed, by the way, so I didn't go into it. And I spent quite a bit of time on the land taking pictures and just absorbing atmosphere. So I took a few hundred pictures that day, to be honest with you. And so I did get permission, but I've not been on since. I always discourage people, as everybody knows, from going onto the land. There's cattle on it. Nobody wants the livestock fences breaking out and livestock to be lost. I'm not sure what there's a lot of asbestos down there, Steve. So you'd want some proper masks. And obviously you would have to have permission, because anybody going into that property now would have to break in. And we're not advocating anybody do that, and I wouldn't do that. But so I think it's best left sealed up, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but, there will be a lot missing ladders, won't they? What have rotted away?
Stairwell's gone. Staircase has been ripped out. Yeah. There's concrete over entrances. It's a no go. It's
how far deep do you think it goes into the ground?
Well, I'm told that there's not just 2 levels. I'm told there's levels below and there's levels further back. I mean, I have been told that it linked up to the Speeton base, and from the Speeton base to RF Staxton Wold, and I find that interesting, because I've said many times that if you get an ordnance survey map and stick a ruler on it, it's a straight line through. That could be just because of communications. It could have just worked like that. I don't know, but I'm trying to think. Well, I won't say, but we know that there's a bricklayer who was being employed many years ago to brick up openings down there and render them over. But as I say, it's not a place that I advocate anybody going, and because once it'd be dangerous to go down there, and you'd definitely be trespassing if you were on land. So it's a no.
Okay, got a question from Adam Sander, and welcome to the show, Adam. There is a lot of nasty stuff going on with cryptids, men in blacks, M's. I won't mention that word, just for the sake of YouTube, etc. Have you heard of anything positive resulting from the local phenomena?
No. Do you know something, Adam? I mean, different areas might produce different effects or different outcomes to situations. But no, there's a lot of negative that I get in reports. I don't turn the reports into a negative. I just take the reports off the people. Some of it, I mean, when you're talking about the things that are going on there, some of it's just feelings, just strange sensations. There's, I think I spoke about it a few weeks ago. There's a guy, he's used to going out shooting, outdoorsman, camps all over the place, goes to Scotland, and he lives in Bempton. He works actually in Bempton, and we often see him when we're up on cliff tops, and he'll come up at all hours, and he'll walk down. We had a torch, and he's in the darkness, and he's never ever had an adverse experience until about 6 weeks ago, and then he contacted me one morning, via social media, and said he went up there. And it was almost as though he'd just walked into a wall of fear. This is a guy who walks about in dark, camps up in Scotland on his own. He said, and I literally walked into fear, and I was waiting for something to jump out on me. He's not spooked. He doesn't get that kind of feeling yet. Something impressed that upon him. Last week, I think it was last week, Linny will correct me, or Pete won't, because he'll be watching but not talking. But Jeremy were up there, and I know other lads have seen it, and there's like little flashes of light in grass, in darkness, just like a torch that's just been flicked on and off. I didn't see them. I wish I had have done. But all I know is that these people who come up there with me, that's first time they've reported flashes of light in grass or anything like that since I saw them with Steve Ashbridge for ages ago, and so it's not like every week we're seeing something, and every week we've got something to report. That was just a weird one. But I know it don't, Adam, I know it don't properly answer your question, but there does appear to be a lot of negative. That's the closest I can say. But I dare say there are people who are having some kind of euphoric experience up there, but I'm not hearing about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of sort of like I remember the when you wrote about the guy or somebody who tried to shoot at you while you was up at Speeton. Was it? Yeah. Was it Speeton where?
It was Speeton. I were on Hoddycows Lane, and I'd gone I'd gone to take photographs for the police officer, ironically, who'd gone up there on his own one evening, and he'd seen this, what he called the figure of 8. Someone tells me it was 2019. I can't remember the exact date. And he'd gone up right to Speeton from Bempton. And he turned around, and there's this strange picture of number 8. It says, but it were crimson colour, deep red, with like a darker band around the middle, pulled in, and he's looking at it. And we may as well do this a little bit, and then we'll go to the shooting, because it makes sense then, Les. And then he says, I just went to get to my phone, and as I looked away, it had gone. But when I looked up, it had been replaced by 3 of the brightest neon white lights you could imagine. LED type lights, sorry. Really bright, but not casting out a shadow, but bright to his eyes. How does that work? 2, and the middle one was slightly higher. And they're not far in front of him, and he's on the path at top of Speeton. Remember, there's no fence, there's nothing. You've just got 420 to the bottom, and he's on a narrow path. He says, once again, went to get my phone to take a picture, or my light. They'd gone. He set off running all the way back to RAF Bempton. Sorry, I've got that on brain. All the way back towards the RAF base. We use that as a focal point. He were hoping to catch a quad bike, somebody, anything. He wanted an explanation for it. So why was I on Hoddycows Lane? I was there a few weeks later to take some photographs in daylight for him, because he'd gone down there because he'd been looking at this stuff and he were mildly interested. And he thought, I want to see what all this fuss is about. And he had an experience, just like a lot of people seem to do. And then it doesn't happen again. It's almost like I'll show you it, but I'm not showing you no more. So I went up there this sunny day, took some photographs. My little dog, it was other dog. And it just went past my chest. It were high velocity bullet that went past my chest. And you could hear it. So I dropped to my knees because I didn't know where it had come from, and let's just correct this here. It might have been accidental. It could have been they were bailing in top fields. Somebody could have took a shot at a deer or anything. Do you know what I mean? I never heard a gunshot. Rang the police, so I have a crime number and everything. If anybody thinks I'm making it up, you can look into it. Not that it matters, but I rang the police, told them what had happened. The police on the other end of the line said, "Are you safe now?" Which is crazy, isn't it? I said, well, I don't know. I says, I don't even know where this has come from. Hang up and ring 101.
Oh,
exact words. So I hung up and then I rang 101 and I'm waiting and I'm thinking, am I stupid? I stood here, so I just hung up and went home and then I rang. So yeah, that were a weird one. There's a bit long-winded people that, so apologies. So from me,
yeah.
So just
yeah, as you said, Paul, it could be accidental, or it could be like what Adam's talking about, men in black or people who don't want you to look at these things. Who knows?
It was weird. I didn't expect that, but there you go.
Okay, we've got a question from Mark Jones, and going back to Tim's item there, is the camera digital? Well, I would have expected it was
720p we're filming, and it's going to be, isn't it, Les? Yeah, I would have thought so, Mark. Yeah,
definitely digital. Yeah. Question from Lee Roscoe: did the air change in any way, Tim?
Right.
Unfortunately, yeah, Tim's not. It won't be on tonight, and it won't be in the stream, will he, Paul? Because
he's not. I think he were at one of their group meetings, but I did ask him if he noticed anything, Lee. So it's still a valid question, mate. And they didn't. Yeah. He weren't even aware till he got home. What, Les?
No, because he wasn't. Yeah, as you say, he wasn't aware of anything at the time. It was only when he reviewed the footage. Yeah, we've got a question from KH Worker. Have you ever investigated a case where sleep paralysis was reported either before or after the primary experience? I can provide further context if needed. Intriguing, that one.
Well, it's hard, isn't it? Because where do we draw a line from sleep paralysis to an actual experience? I mean, because you're going to get people far more educated than me or involved in the science of all that will say that everything that people are experiencing, a perceived alien abduction scenario, is sleep paralysis. So I don't know. Although you make a good point, because some people I have spoken to who've had these experiences do say, oh, and I have suffered from sleep paralysis before. So it's kind of a marker. You wonder, don't you? With my own experiences in childhood, I'm not sure I suffered from sleep paralysis. I thought it was very real. And for the people that always said, that may have said, oh, well, it's probably just sleep paralysis. I said, well, how do you explain holes in your arms and your back then when you wake up? It's a difficult one. Sorry, I can't go into any more detail with that, KH. But if you want to speak to me afterwards, I'd love to hear what you've got to share on that.
Okay, and this juncture, Paul, we'll just do a little bit of advertising, self-promotion. You've got some books for sale which are on the screen behind me.
Yeah.
And if you tell people who don't know yet, who've come to the stream for the first time, what these books are all about and where they can buy them.
Right. Okay. So these are the truth proof books. The orange one's the first one. That's obviously the fourth one. And there's the Night People, which is, they're all written by me, but that's about my own experiences. So they're available on Amazon. It's multi-phenomena reports. So you're going to get, there's no order. If you bought the orange one, the first one, truth proof one, it wouldn't matter. If you bought number 4 first, it would not matter. All the reports, it's multi-phenomena. It's cryptid sightings, UFO sightings, MIBs, everything, the full spectrum. And they're all first-hand accounts. and you're probably not going to find them anywhere else in the world. And I don't mean the books, I mean the accounts, because I actually get out there and speak to the people face to face most of the time who've seen and experienced these things. So they're available on Amazon as digital downloads. You can also buy them as paperbacks on the website truthproof.uk. That's my website. We've also got this DVD, which myself and Les have made, which is Wolflands, all cryptid-related accounts, first-hand witnesses once again, plus a mix of light form phenomena that's been associated with the cryptid reports as well. That's available on, where is it, Les?
Amazon Prime. And also you can buy the DVD from the website as well.
Yeah, so that's truthproof.uk if you want a physical copy. So, yeah, and there you go. Read reviews on books. That's all I can say. I'm not bothered. It sounds a bit brash, that. If you buy them or you don't buy them. Yeah, I'm really not, because there's no money made in it. so yeah, read the reviews. If you like reviews, and you like reviews on Wolflands, for the most part, they're all glowing reviews. Give it a go. Okay, let's.
Steve 71. Paul, any future speaking plans in the UK?
Not at the moment, no. I was going to speak at the Awakening later in the year, but that's been cancelled. So no, not at the moment. I've been asked to speak at 2 overseas, and I've turned them down, but great venues and great people to speak with. But no, not at the moment. Something might crop up and I might end up doing something, but not at the moment.
Disabled Welshman, Mike the Disabled Welshman. I saw nothing on the video, but when I looked at the picture, I saw it.
Brilliant. Well, I'm glad about that, really, because I did wonder, because I looked at it a few times, Mike, and prior to seeing the still. But if I've put it into, what is it, Da Vinci Resolve, Les, and we've broke it down frame by frame. You can see whatever it is clearly just kind of evaporates into nothingness, but it's quite big when you see it on still. So Tim's definitely captured something. It's just one of them we're never going to know, are we?
No. And I got a question here from Billy GW. I can send you, Paul, a picture I took last year in Cavan Island of a wood was, but you won't have a circle around it. Yeah.
Oh, Billy, we would love to see it. And likewise, Billy, you might not want to, but if you want to talk us through it next week or week after, one Sunday evening, we're kind of game for that if you are. If not, send the picture and we'll put it up. That's really kind of you. Thank you. Yeah. What's the email address? Is Paul Sinclair, all lowercase, ilf@gmail.com.
Okay. I've got a question from Tony Worrell. For Paul, were there any lookouts on the cliffs in World War II and any stories from the war? What's the question?
I've got UFO related stories, light form phenomena in old logs and things, old Coast Guard logs and lifeboat logs, but no stories from people who were involved in it during the war. But there are lookouts up on the cliffs still. There's one that can be seen at North Landing. If you get in car park, you can see it over the other side at Bay. And there's bunkers along top at cliffs. I mean, some of them, soil's eroded that far, it's frightening to think about. It's almost as though if you went into end of it, it's going to tip off and fall into sea. So yeah, there's plenty of evidence of World War II along the cliff tops, Tony. And I'll tell you one story which is interesting. There were a submarine that ended up at the bottom of, I think it was Speeton Cliffs during the World War II. And the people of Bempton, and some of these people, if you're in Bempton now and you're listening in silence, you probably don't even know this, but the people of Bempton took the generator out of the submarine. I think that's what it was, and hauled it up the cliffs and then used it to power homes. It's just nuts. I mean, ingenuity of that, and they would have had EMP ropes and things in them days, wouldn't they? Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't have been all sophisticated gear that we would have had today. And that submarine, funnily enough, I think it's the same one. It's still the skeletal remains of it are still below Bempton and Speeton Cliffs. And incidentally, I'm supposed to be walking there this week with a guy called Andy Barmby. We're gonna pick a really low tide and go and have a look at it. So there you go. and I'm not taking dog. No, there's some really deep. The rocks. Sorry, I know you got a question there, but the rocks, when you look from the top of the cliffs, don't look that big, but they're as big as buses. You know, they're huge rocks, and there's little cracks and gaps between them. And obviously, if dog fell down them, you'd never get him back. That'd be end of it. So he won't be coming.
No. Steve 71, do you think this wall of fear is infrared sound from unseen entity that wants people out of the area at that moment?
The infrasound, it could be. It could be. I mean, I was up on the cliff tops probably about, I don't know, 5 years ago with Steve Ashbridge once again, and his partner at the time, Kelly. This lady used to be in not Coronation Street, Emmerdale Farm. And we sat, not that that has any bearing on this, but it's evening. And suddenly I became aware of a really irritating, horrible sound. And I know that's probably not infrasound, but it was so high-pitched. And I said, can you hear that? She put her hands to her head, and she'd got like an airband, and she put that over, and she said, I can't stand it. We're going to have to go. Steve couldn't hear it. But we both knew instantly when it had stopped. Then it come on again and switched off again. So, I mean, it could be something that could have been some military tech out at sea that were creating that. But yeah, it could be that it's the infrasound is something that's been emitted, being discharged by something that wants to remove people from the area. You could be right. It's hard to say.
Rivington, Pike Beasley, Roscoe, question. Paul and Arles, you must have chatted about UFOs and the war. What made you both think about this and make a short out of it? Well, Paul's got an actual story behind that, and it wasn't my idea.
No, it weren't, Lee. And I'll tell you, these shorts that I'm putting out are literally off the cuff. I walked down at, I don't know, it were very early that morning with dog, and I'm stood there with the GoPro. Well, it was DJI. I prefer it to GoPro. Anybody that's thinking of getting one, consider that. It's really good. So I'm walking down, and I saw some to the words to the effect of, "Hi guys, don't think I've got anything to talk about today. However, something might spring to mind when I get down there." And I got onto the beach, and I was thinking about the Angel of Mons because I'd been reading about it, and there was nothing planned. So I literally just walked with dog, and just spoke about a few things. Well, you can tell there were nothing planned, Lee, because when you think about it, the text has been put in afterwards. So I spoke about a few of these things. Then I went and looked for some of it. I knew it were there. There's even more that could be done. So a lot of the shorts, that's why they're rough and ready, because Paul's doing them. And, and I fire them over to Les, and Les, you put the front and the back on them, don't you, Les? And we get them out there. So it had not been planned, mate. But I like that one, to be honest with you. Just a different slant on things.
Yeah, and it might be a case of watch this space, won't it, Paul? Really?
Yeah. I think we can do some more on that. Yeah,
there could be a bit of a theme going there.
Yeah.
I won't say any more at this point, but yeah,
no,
keep watching, and we'll probably bring something else out. Right then, I've got monetary donation from Karen Beerman. Thank you for that, Karen. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. And just before we move from the randomness of these short films, been to Caton today to my daughters, or to our daughters, on the way back 9:30 in the morning because we had to go through early. We're driving across the Flixton cars, and I thought about a triangle sighting that came from Hummonby over towards Whitegate Hill, and just got the GoPro out. Mary put the camera on me as I'm talking in car. It weren't planned. So that's how they're done. For me, anyway. I do realise that some people put a lot of time and effort into them, but I haven't got the time, and I don't want to put the effort in.
But you do put the effort in. Yeah, but you do put the effort in, Paul, and a lot of people appreciate that. I'll move on with this question from Barrow White. Have both of you heard of the Folklore, the Barguest? There's been tales of such dogmen for hundreds of years.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, I'm going to point to that film first thing, but Paul will tell you more.
Go on, Les. No, go on, because you made the film with me. Go on. What were you going to say?
Well, The Barguest, yeah. I mean, it goes back how many thousands of years? These stories in folklore.
The stories of the Barguest, they go back a long way into folklore, as Barrow Wright
as you
correctly
know,
says. Yeah. And I've been looking at those stories, and when we were making Wolflands, I found in an archive in Bridlington Harbour. I'm losing the plot. Bridlington Library. I found in an archive a story from a guy called Howard Brearley, and it was 121 years old, and he were writing about the Barguest of East Ayton. So just like you're saying, Barrow Wright, these stories are there, and he's talking about this phantom hound with what have you got? What have you got? Huge glowing eyes. There's nothing changed. And interestingly, East Ayton, how far is that from some of the locations that we filmed, Les? 4 or 5 miles, no more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all in the same vicinity, isn't it? Yeah,
same vicinity. We were literally walking in the footsteps of the people who've reported these things hundreds of years ago. So, we're not breaking new ground. It's great. The Barguest, a great name, isn't
it? Yeah. Andy Ross, Ghost Whisperer. Any plans for books going to Audible?
Yeah. To be honest, Andy, I'd love to, and my problem is time, fitting things in. And I've started the book, haven't I? The sub-universe, and I've got loads of information. I'm sort of putting it together, and interestingly, I'm thinking about having an attempt at another book, because we're looking at, just from that random short that we put out that just come off the cuff, what did we call it? The Theatre of War, the UFO connection. I thought there's something interesting here that could be put together, so I better do it before somebody else jumps on my idea. But Audible books, I think it's a great idea, Andy. I'll have to speak to Philip Mantle about it, because I know he gets all his put into an Audible version. So why shouldn't I?
Billy GW, I've emailed it to you, Paul. That's the picture he's holding on to.
And be sure, Billy, we won't do anything with it until I've spoken to you. And if you say you don't want it putting out there, it'll stay between us. But I'm intrigued, and I'm sure everybody in chat is now, so we might have to show them. Only joking.
Good question from Lee Roscoe. Question: do you know how long lifeboat logs last, Paul, and where do they get stored afterwards?
Well, lifeboat logs, it's usually a paper log, and there's a book, like a manila coloured book. The old ones used to be, and the Coast Guard logs are like a powder blue colour. But now everything's digitized, isn't it? So the actual paper written up reports, I don't think will exist anymore. It's only if somebody like myself or somebody in an official capacity puts in a request for information that things would be printed off, because everything's just done electronically. But the lifeboat logs, I mean, I've looked at lifeboat logs in Bridlington lifeboat that are going back to like 50s and 40s and 50s, and I've looked at lots of lifeboat logs, and I've had people bring me logs, bring me lifeboat logs to look at, which I've returned, because they're not mine to keep, and I've got lifeboat logs there on that printer, funnily enough, which I were lucky enough to get off Philip Mantle. We've just mentioned his name. I have a lot of logs for XS894, the Lightning that crashed in 1970, because I'm like a dog with a bone. I won't let it go. I still think there's some mileage in that story. And I've now got a lot of logs for it, and lots of other information. But that's probably for another day.
Steve-O71, Paul, is the Bobster always ready to go, even at 4 a.m. when you're heading out to shoot your short videos?
He's always ready. Yeah, Bobster's biggest problem is people and other dogs, because he thinks everybody loves him. So at that time in the morning, I've not got a problem, and he clings to me like glue. But if he sees anybody, I've got to see them before. Luckily, he's tiny, isn't he? So usually I see somebody before he sees them, because he wants to just go and greet them. But not everybody's friendly, and not everybody's dog's friendly, and he don't understand that yet. And I don't want him to get hurt. I'm a bit stupid with him, and my wife says the same. And my daughter Sarah, I'm absolutely stupid with dog, because it can get away with everything with me. But there you go.
Okay, and thanks for Jojo for the donation tonight also. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thanks. No more questions on my questions
No more
list,
questions.
Paul, unless you've seen any what people didn't put in gaps.
I can see one there, but I'll just leave that for a minute because I just want to kind of put something out for somebody that contacted me. Unless you've got else to sell us, have you?
One question has just come in, but do you want this question now?
I'll just do this. So we're going back to 23rd of November 2023, and I just want to highlight a location because this lady's contacted me, and she was on the A64 eastbound at Bilborough, and she was heading to Scarborough, and she'd got a two fairly grown-up children in car, not children, 17-year-old son in passenger seat, younger daughter in back seat, and they'd stopped off mid-journey at McDonald's to get something to eat on the way home. And it's not a long story, this. It's just a strange one. They'd gone later because they wanted to avoid being stuck in rush hour. So they'd just crossed over the flyover to the T-junction, turned left towards the services. They'd only travelled a couple of 100 metres. And remember, this is A64 Bilborough. They'd only travelled a couple of 100 metres. And she said, when suddenly, to my shock, I'm back at the junction where I've just turned off. She says, and I looked to my son because I weren't going to say anything. And we'll not swear, but he started with an F and he went, what the just happened? He'd noticed it as well. It's completely puzzled her. She's literally just sent me an email, and she sent me two because I didn't quite gather full detail of what were in it at first. I'm looking for a report, and then because it were a little bit vague, so I got more information off this lady, and it's just an interesting one to throw out there because somebody else might say, "Oh, something weird happened to me there." So it's a time slip, basically. That's what she's experienced, some kind of strange, anomalous time slip, which her son sat at the side of her. She said, we knew where we were going. We'd done a couple of 100 yards or meters. She said, and suddenly we're back at the junction. And she just couldn't work that one out. So we've thrown that one out there. November 23rd, A64, eastbound Bilborough, and eastbound carriageway at Bilborough Top. That's what it says. I've driven that stretch of road countless times regularly, calling at the services there. And I'm reading this. There's a garage, McDonald's, Starbucks, hotel. And this is the first time anything strange has ever happened. So she just asked me if I'd put it out there for people, and I've done it. So I hope you do manage to hear something, Yeah. And I've go on, Les.
Yeah, carry on, Paul.
And I've got another. We've still got this incredible Speeton sighting to deal with. What Stephen, his partner, have told me about, and it really is incredible. And so that's not been forgotten about. And now there's a cryptid sighting, and I spoke to a lady yesterday, and I've been emailing her on and off now for about 5 weeks. And this has been seen while she's been traveling on a train from Hull. The first train from Hull that morning. I've got dates and everything. Well, I'm not going into great detail about this at the moment. And she's just before she gets into Bridlington. And if anybody's familiar with Brid, I know there'll be some people in Brid. So it used to be where Strawberry Fields car boot sale is. The building houses on it now. I think it's Keep Moat and Barrett's Homes are building there. I think they call it Salk Fields or Sark Fields. And she's on the train facing in the direction of Bridlington, looking at the other side of the road, which would be Carnaby. And she claims that suddenly a deer sprang up out of the crop and there's something pursuing it that's not stood upright on two legs, but it's on two legs pursuing it. But the thing that has literally frightened her to death is that it had glowing yellow or amber eyes. And just another crazy story. And I don't mean crazy in a derogatory way, because they keep coming in. People keep reporting these things. And while other people want to report them and they sound sincere, I'll listen to them, because not everybody's telling me untruths. And there's enough people coming forward now to suggest that something, no matter how hard it is for us to get our heads around, there's something very real to what's been reported. So that's that little bit. We'll go into detail about that later.
Okay, Peter Harris writes, what time of day or night are people most likely to experience anomalous phenomena in your research's area of focus?
Do you know, Peter, like that would a day early morning sighting what this lady's just had, but I would have thought that, you know, when darkness falls, it seems that this whatever it is wants to come out or wants to do whatever it is it's doing, and obviously it does throw a different persona, a different feel on the land when you get in dark places. It's like walking around a house in the night time. You get that spooky kind of feel. So a lot of it could be just the human perception, but it does seem to be that at night time these areas change and things do. You know, when we're on those cliff tops, don't forget, in the daytime, most of those cliff tops around the Bempton area, it's an RSPB reserve. There's people milling about with cameras. So why aren't they catching things? But they're looking at the seabirds, but they're with cameras. But I'll guarantee that once that sun starts to go down, if anybody's up on those cliffs, it'll just be me and a few people. There's nobody there. We spent years on them in all weathers, and there's nobody ever gets up there unless they're looking and wanting to experience something. Interestingly, another little shout out then, if there's anybody from RSPB who watches this, I tell you now that one of your members of staff has seen a red sphere of light enter the sea. It's we'll call it historic because it's a couple of years old, but I know that they've seen it because I know the person that was with them when they saw it. So I'm wanting to know if anybody's out there who's seen anything, or has any people come in from looking at the seabird colony and reported anything, because I know that happens as well. And I know that firsthand because I did some work in the building years ago, and a member of staff had to stay with us overnight, and he told us that people occasionally do come in and say they've seen odd things. So they didn't expect to talk about RSPB, but great organisation, by the way. So go on then, let's have any questions.
We've got Barrow White back on with, I would love to read about the Barguest encounter. Can you tell me where to find it? I have a collection of such things.
It's there. but I'll tell you what, though, like I said before, it don't matter I'm not bothered about you buying book, mate. If you email me, I'll send you a report. Easy, innit?
Okay, let's have a look at this one from Karen Beeman. Thanks for the question, Karen. Any sightings of unexplained sea creatures or things that appear and then vanish around the coastal areas you cover?
Yeah, there is, Karen, and I don't know if it was last week, but I probably weren't last week, but we have touched on it in one of the shorts. I think it was 1934, and I think February 1934, all the way along the east and North Yorkshire coast, people were reporting seeing a sea monster. That were the exact words that they used. That were the terminology. Sort of the crescendo, if you like, was that a coast guard called Mr. B. Herbert, I don't know what we'll call him Brian if you want, I don't know, but B. Herbert is what it says in the reports, close to the Filey Brig, claims that this thing was on land and went out to sea. So it's fascinating. So if it's one person imagining it and it's just mass hysteria and everybody's pretending or reporting it, Flamborough people had seen unusual things, but they thought it was a blackfish. I don't know what a blackfish was. I'm assuming, I said in the short that we did, could that have been a killer whale? Were they prevalent in 1934 around the area? Because they just said they thought people were mistaking large blackfish. And they come up a lot in archives at Bridlington Library, people, the locals talking about the blackfish. Somebody might be able to enlighten me there what the blackfish are, because none of the fishermen have ever told me. So yeah, 1934, and it was seen as far down as Mouth at Humber as well, and way up coast, Teesside. It looked like a serpent. And missing time. Hi, Andy.
Missing time with the A64 report.
No, they didn't know that they'd experienced missing time. They were just absolutely perplexed that they knew that they'd turned at that junction, driven for a couple of 100 yards or meters, and suddenly they're back at that junction and you just can't work it out. So it's just one of them that you're always going to be scratching your head, isn't it?
He's a 64 HH. Paul, have you had the holes in your shoulder? Have you had any reoccurring issues after you've had the holes in your shoulder? Have you?
No, I got those in my arms, both arms, and then it midpoint on my back, the big holes. and it stopped, and it was late 1997, and I've not really had anything after that. And I'm pleased as well that I haven't. That's why I'd always say to people who'd come to me and say, "Do you know, I think you probably just had a lucid dream, or are you sure you didn't? Were you doing some kind of hallucinogenics or something?" So I've never done anything like that, but a lucid dream will not produce holes in your body. I'm pretty sure of that.
And just to add to that, I've inspected your back very closely.
And
it's really, really strange. It's like somebody sculpts a small spoon into his back at various points.
I'll tell you what, though, Les,
Weird.
and I know we're short for time, and I'll definitely not go into detail about this, but a man come to visit me and stood in the bottom of our garden. First of all, I've got a little summer house at the bottom of the garden. We had a coffee, had a chat. He wanted to tell me about some stuff. And then he showed me some marks on his body that he didn't know where they'd come from. And the things that have happened to me just pale into insignificance. It looked like somebody had took a melon scoop to parts of his legs, to his back. And and that's as much as I'll say about that, to be honest with you. I'd have to get his permission to talk any more about it. But yeah, wow. Absolutely harrowing.
Right then. So let's have a look at this one from Cameron Sweetnam. When they arrived back at the T-junction, did they notice any physical changes or marks on themselves?
Nothing, Cameron. And been not detailed, but pretty thorough in the second email. Because the first one, I wanted more information, and nothing from what I can gauge from them. And basically, they're just looking for answers and asked me if I'd put it out there to see if anybody else has ever experienced anything strange around that location. So remember the location, A64 eastbound at Bilborough. So and they're off on the way to Scarborough.
Steve-O71, Les, do you visit Bempton, and what phenomena would you like to experience? Well, the first answer to that is yes, I do visit Bempton. And what phenomena I'd like to experience? Anything, Steve-O, because I'm not really witnessing that much at all. And it could be where some of these sightings, or even mass sightings, because Paul goes up as he tells you with other people, and they all say the same thing. I've not seen anything. So whether I'm just the unlucky one, but I'm still in there and I'm still looking.
And it's strange how this happens, isn't it? I mean, we've got a guy who comes down from Fylingdales. Well, it's easier to say Fylingdales because people might not know Fylingthorpe, but that's where he lives. And he came just once in September last year and saw these lights. And he's been coming down ever since, hoping to see them. And he's sort of joined forces with us. A great guy, Jeremy. And not seen a thing. Apart from the little sparks of light the other week in the grass. But nothing else. And that's the way it goes.
Well, I'll have to join up with Jeremy then, and I just might be lucky. On that note, Paul, I think we are up. Well, definitely our questions from and we are wrapping up. So any closing comments?
No, just thanks for support, guys. Thank you, Alison, for doing moderating for us. I see our Laura's in there. Laura, my daughter, that's brilliant. Great to see you, Laura. Joe, just a few people. Stargazer, Gary, Stuart Wicks, and we could do names again, couldn't we, forever? But thanks for support. Thank you, Les, and I shall see you all next Thursday. All being well, thank you.
Yeah, next Thursday it will be. And on that note, thanks for, I'll just echo what Paul said. Thanks for everybody who's coming to the stream. Thanks for the donations tonight. Always welcome, as we said. Thanks, Alison, moderating. That's my bit done, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.